The new channel. The new channel. The views, opinions, and insights expressed in the following show are those of the hosts, producers, guests, and viewers. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the channel. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to the new channel, here to help you see the new you. And for today, two speakers, 20 minutes, thought-provoking messages. This is The Talk. This is Dennis Calamba, the Mr. Delightful of Learning, also a certified webinar speaker. I am the host of The Talk. We are glad you could join us for another episode of The Talk, where we feature local and international speakers with messages that educate, motivate, and inspire a call to action. We provide a power-packed learning session through our speakers who invest precious minutes of their time to share their expertise and experience for you, our dear viewers. So for this episode, we have two of the most hardworking, creative, and innovative business owners and speakers of the Philippine training industry. Their combined milestones, achievements, and accomplishments would probably run for three-fourths of the allotted talk time here. So 20 minutes, three-fourths, well, you do the math. But for me, this is my job. And I want to let you know that it is their heart to teach, mentor, and serve that makes them truly special. And today, we bear witness as they take the virtual stage and expertly deliver their topic of choice here on The Talk. So, are you ready for the first speaker? So, guys, again, of course, this is a live stream, so you can comment, you can let me know your emoticons or emojis so that I would know that we have a sizable audience for today. But here we go. Our first speaker is one of the country's top ranked corporate trainers on leadership and other people's skills. A management and marketing professional, he was involved in various industries, both local and international, for more than 2 decades. As a corporate trainer, management consultant, and executive coach, he has served organizations in the Philippines, Asia, and the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, to deliver a talk entitled Making the Most Out of 2020, let us all welcome Mr. Boris Joaquin. Hello, Boris.
All right. Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for having me today, Dennis. And Lloyd also. I know you're
For him, he's so
behind the
excited.
camera.
So I hope that our audience are ready. Get your notebooks and pens ready as we bring in our first speaker for today here on The Talk. Yes, there he goes. Boris, the stage is yours. Hit it.
Again, thank you for having me. And Dennis and Lloyd, this is amazing. This show is innovative. And one thing I like about doing virtual talks, and I've been doing it for several months now, even before the pandemic, is that you could really be informal about it. You could be casual about it, and I like the fact that it emanated from bloggers, video people who produce video online. So it's something that I've been doing even before the pandemic. And when this got in, when we had a lockdown, it's really obviously something that I had to pivot myself into and my business. And one of the things that we were discussing along the line, whenever I talk and mentor some of my clients, including several entrepreneurs and business people, is how do you exactly pivot during this time? How do you exactly recalibrate during this very uncertain period? One of the jobs that I do as a consultant is that I'm a change management um, assessor or consultant. I actually help people manage through change. And the title and the topic that Dennis and I thought of for today is something about making the most of your 2020. Nagkagulatan tayo, di ba? Parang bigla na lang. Nangangalahati na yung taon. It's already June and July. And then a lot of the clients that I have are going through their mid-year reviews, their fiscal year reviews, and some of the workshops that I've been doing and facilitating and coaching are on strategic planning. And I realized that we've been prepared for this in so many ways. One of the topics that I like delivering and sharing and coaching my clients on is the topic on change. And I guess we are all going through that particular situation. I mean, whether it's the crisis, whether it's the COVID-19 itself, or just your company pivoting to a new normal or shifting to different work principles and policies and approaches, everything is about change. We are going through change, and the challenge of change is really difficult. And I don't know how you're managing it. How are you managing change? If you're watching right now, comment down below. Tell me, and maybe after I give this talk, I'll interact with you and also respond. But how are you during the pandemic? How are you during this change period and season? Kasi patong-patong, di ba? Parang change after change, we're going to have the State of the Nation address of the president in a while, and I know, I'm sure he's going to be introducing other changes, other policies, and probably other approaches that the government will be undertaking. Mabubulaga na naman tayo. And how are you managing towards this change? We need to recognize that among our people, right? Like, I could be very anxious when the pandemic hit the country and of course globally. One of the first reactions that I had is I was very emotional about it because it affected my business. It affected how I do things as a consultant. 16 live events were originally postponed and eventually canceled for my company. I had several trips, local and abroad, within the month of March, and they were all postponed and canceled. And of course, the possibility of earning from those opportunities suddenly was put into hold. My company and my teams, we made several plans. I mean, literally, we had strategic plans, we had different project plans, we have tactical plans, we even have a digital plan. Even believe it or not, even before we knew we had to turn over to this platform, we have so many plans, and all those plans literally went down the drain. Ang natira na lang leche plan. That's my favorite dessert. All the plans are literally went down the drain. So when we recalibrate, when we try to rethink our position right now, whether in our careers or in our business, even our personal life, I am a big fan of change management strategies. And as a matter of fact, I've been delivering the same content to several companies in the past 3 months. I've been invited in different conferences or town hall meetings, and I've been doing the same thing. As a matter of fact, the same content that you are hearing today, and I hope you could share it to your friends, are exactly the content of my article in Rappler, which will be published tomorrow morning. And I'll probably share that in the thread below so that you can have a recorded or documented version of this talk. So, how do we manage change? How do we manage change? I said that we're anxious a lot of times, and when we're anxious, there's a lot of stress and anxiety, right? We're anxious because there's so many change happening before us. We're anxious because we feel like we're not capable enough to handle the situations. We're anxious because there's not enough resources, and that's a very realistic perspective, right? not enough resources. Kulang ang kaban, kulang ang budget, business going down. I've been a coach to the tourism board, and a lot of the businesses doing resorts and restaurants and hotels, they struggle. They're still struggling, and they're still trying to manage on how to survive. So how do you recalibrate from that? And for a lot of us who are not deeply affected, like the tourism industry or the live events industry, we're probably awkward. Wouldn't you feel the same way? So other than being anxious, we could feel awkward. Alanganin tayo. Hindi natin alam how to, nangangapa tayo about our situation. We are trekking this new normal or this new journey blindfoldedly. Blind tayo, we can't see. We're ambivalent is deciding not to be involved in all. And so tell me what your emotional reactions are during the first half of 2020 and moving forward to the to the remaining balance of the year. And I would like to share with you three change strategies that would allow you make the most out of the year. Diba? Let's redeem the year. Sayang eh. And this initiative that Lloyd is doing, TNC, is obviously one way to redeem the year, to make the most out of the balance of 2020. So let me just give you three tips basically on how you can make the most out of your year. And the first step that I would like to share is basically being purposeful, right? That's this. It's a simple word, and you might think that it's very altruistic or very ideal, but no, it's actually a change strategy altogether. Being purposeful means that you are on track with your vision and direction. DDI came up with a study back in 2018, and they said that purpose-driven companies outperform other companies by 40%. And I don't have to even rattle about that. Simon Sinek wrote about it in Start With Your Why. Rick Warren's best-selling book, The Purpose-Driven Life, is just an evidence, or it serves as proof that people would like to know what on earth they're here for. And in the same manner, companies outlast other companies, according to Jim Collins of Good to Great, when they're purpose driven. And just having a sense of purpose allows us to have the big picture. Yeah, parang yung mga show dito. Just knowing the big picture, understanding where you're headed, allows you to make decisions right now, allows you to decide whether you will sustain this company or not, allows you to understand how you will recalibrate. Of course, there's a lot of things that you probably won't be able to do, and there's a lot of considerations, but being purposeful allows you to recalibrate. there's there's essentially two action points when you want to be purposeful with your business or your career. It's time to reflect, just to think on where you are right now and whether you are doing the right thing. For most of my friends and colleagues, they actually considered changing careers or exploring home-based businesses, and they've been dying to do that for quite some time. But having shifts in their schedules or having no work days enables them to actually get it started or to see how it will work. So when you reflect, you try to weigh things out and decide whether will I continue what I'm doing right now or whether I should start something else. And that's where the second R comes in. You recalibrate, right? So after you reflect, don't just stay with your reflection. Don't just mole in your reflection. You need to act on it. So recalibrating is very important because when you recalibrate, you start to make a do-over, or maybe you can attend to the things that you need attending to. A lot of my partners and business friend owners, the thing that they did in the first 2 months of the lockdown, pinag-isipan nila kung saan sila nagkamali, what's the error of their back end businesses are, processes and systems, ayun yung binago nila. And when they did that, they were more intentional now as they move forward. Of course, there's a lot of things again that they had to let go, but eventually they just pressed on. So after being purposeful, the second strategy that I want you to remember is being proactive. Okay, that's a key word there, being proactive. So other than being purposeful, being proactive actually means the keywords are active, right? So you need to be, oops, kamali ako. There's being active, right? Proactive is you need to be very intentional about it. I like the word intentional or relentless because when you're proactive, go lang ng go. I mean, don't ever stop. It's tiring, but if you know that you are you are on the if you're aligned with your purpose and you know you're on the right track, just push. I mean, don't ever rethink it. Just keep on creating, keep on building, keep on adding to it. And when I say proactive, it's really different from productivity because a lot of people, I must admit, are productive, but they're not necessarily producing or doing the things that really matters. They're just producing the things that are feasible, but they're not producing things that are of value. Being proactive means pursuing what your vision and direction has identified for you, and that's the main business purpose, or that's the main goal. Being proactive means persevering and pushing forward, and if it's wrong, then maybe you have to pivot. And I guess that's where the these two particular advice can actually come in, because when you are proactive, you need to persevere or you pivot. Yung pivot, favorite word to ngayon in the new normal. Pivot. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng pivot? When you persevere, ang ibig sabihin ng persevere, obviously, we all know that. You encourage yourself, you motivate yourself, you energize yourself, you build on whatever you're doing and keep pushing it, so that you can outlast everybody else, so you can be stronger, your foundation could be firmer. And if there's something wrong with what you're doing, there's an error, there's a mistake, then you just pull it back. You pivot. So go lang ng go, and then if there's a mistake, pull it back because you need to pivot, and then try it again. And that's what proactivity is. A lot of times people are reacting, and when we're reactive, our emotions are in play. God created our brain. I'm going to be a little bit on the neuroscience now. Our brains are composed of two components: our prefrontal cortex, which is a large part here, and our amygdala. Our amygdala yung nasa batok. And that produces your reactions or your emotional reactions. And a lot of times, nandito raw yung hypothalamus. Diyan ka na in love, hindi sa puso dito. I love you with all my hypothalamus. Kaya pag umibig tayo, ito ang gumagana. When we're reacting, when we're emotional about things, ito yung gumagana. But our prefrontal cortex, that's our creativity. That's where we're innovative. That's where we're ingenious. That's where we come up with new things and create. That's our cognitive side, our logical side, where our problem solving, decision making, and critical thinking skills are in. So when we're confronted with changes like this crisis right now, ito dapat na pinapagana. Okay, and ito yung unang sasalubong eh. Ito yung unang sasalubong, hindi yung batok, di ba? So a lot of us, magmasak yung batok natin is because we're reacting to the changes that we are confronted right now. And being proactive is being steadfast in mind. I remember there's a verse in Isaiah that refers to this. When Isaiah the prophet was comforting the people of God, I think the message there is that you will have perfect peace. Magkakaroon ka raw ng peace of mind when you have a steadfast mind and a trusting heart. A steadfast mind allows you to be proactive. Pag sinabing steadfast, go lang ng go. You are relentless. You are pursuing. You are unwavering. A relentless mind is a proactive mind, not a reactive mind, not emotional, but very cognitive. And we want to use this. And honestly, it's the one that separates us from the animal kingdom. Di ba yung mga aso kapag kinanti mo, anybody who owns a dog here, kapag kinanti mo, the way they react is that they bark at you. And then eventually, pag kinanti mo pa further, what will happen? They'll probably bite you. Diba? So napaka-reactive nun. And that's an emotional reaction. But what separates us from the animal kingdom is our ability to process things with our prefrontal cortex. So whenever you feel like reacting, okay lang naman. I mean, that's why I asked you at the beginning, how are you responding to this pandemic and the several changes in the first half of the year? But if you're overreacting, yun yung nakakatakot. If you're overreacting, then you have to tell yourself, kay tao ako, hindi ako aso. Just have to remind yourself, tao ako, hindi ako aso. I will stop barking and I will never bite at any given point because I might be overreacting. and we have to use more of our proactive cognitive side of our brain, so we could make the most out of our lives, our careers, and our businesses, and stay tuned to our purposes and what we really laid down before us. And let me end with the third. Yeah, the third, and here's the third change strategy, just for you to make the most out of your 2020. And it's obviously it's another P, as you notice, purposeful, and then being proactive. So the third one is to prioritize. Okay, reprioritize. Now, this is very important, especially in this season of crisis. We said a while ago that when you're anxious, diba, you're anxious because there are several layers of changes being imposed onto you, or there are several um, insecurities that you may have. You may lack the capacity, or you may lack the resources. Lack the capacity, lack the resources. That's why it's important for us to really prioritize at this point. Hindi lahat ng pwede dapat mong gawin, right? So you need to weigh things out now, and that's where you put value where value really matters at this point, because in life, and how we make the most out of our 2020 and out of our lives in general, is we need to realize one fundamental principle. Life is not a choice of what's good and bad. It's not always a choice within good and bad. It's also a choice of what's good and best. And during this time of pandemic, where our resources are scarce, where our capabilities are hindered, then we might need to consider to prioritize other things. One of the strategies that we use, and I normally give this during my consultancy, and I'm giving it for free to all of you, is we measure impact. So it's impact versus visibility. So whenever you want to gauge a particular project or task, sukatin mo lang yun. Alin yung mas magbibigay ng mas magandang, mas malaking contribution sa buhay ko, sa career ko, sa negosyo ko? What would be of value to me more? And then, what is more feasible? Pag sinabing feasible, posible. Pwedeng gawin, kayang gawin. Pag hindi realistic, paano mo magagawa yun, right? So, high impact and high feasible items are the ones that you prioritize at this point. May mga bagay na high feasible pero low impact. Ano yung mga yon? Yun yung mga routine mong ginagawa. Kunwari, bookkeeping or organizing, filing. I mean, those are feasible because it's there. I mean, part talaga siya ng to-do list mo. Pero you may want to delay that later kasi baka hindi siya necessary and essential for the moment. There's also items that are high impact pero low feasible, hindi siya realistic. And then you ask yourself, why is it not realistic? Maybe because I don't have the information here right now. Pwede yun, right? Maybe I need to do more research, or maybe I need to equip myself. That's why I watch and attend webinars like this at TNC. And when you realize that, alam mong may value siya, pero the only time you can actually implement it is when you are equipped to do it, right? So of course, pag low impact, low visibility, after the pandemic na lang yan. So pag-usapan natin later on. So that's a very good strategic tool altogether. That's a very good strategic tool for your life as well. Weighing it out. Parang kapatid siya ng time management grid, pero magkaiba siya. It's actually more weighing what would make more impact, what would make more sense, what would give more value and contribute more to your life, to your business, and to your career, and what is more feasible, what's possible, what's realistic. And when you weigh those things out, then you realize that okay, these are the things that we can actually do. All right. So and I've been giving this advice to a lot of businesses, and I remember one of the business person in Iloilo. He owns a hotel, and of course, hotels are affected by this pandemic very much, right? And of course, he had to really sink in. And then when we were discussing, when I was his coach, when I was telling him how to recalibrate, those are the three P's that I just gave to him: purposeful, uh, purposeful, proactive, and then prioritize. And of course, it's very foundational to talk about purpose. And I asked him, "What's your purpose? Why did you establish your hotel?" And he really had to search his heart, and he realized that he wants to bring delight to the families that are in their province, that visit their province or live in their province. He wants to delight families and to allow them to enjoy memories together. And I thought that was good. Hold on to that. And of course, the tanong niya, paano kikita with that purpose? Yeah, you could just hold on to that. Now, you need to be proactive. Ano yung mga kailangan mong gawin ngayon? And the government imposed na 50% lang mag-operate. Of course, alam naman natin, kahit 50% na mag-operate, hindi pa rin siya kikita kasi hindi naman ma-fill up yung rooms na yon, right? And not everybody is willing to go to the hotels at this point. So he had to talk to his employees. He had to let go of some of them. But ang ganda ng messaging niya, he said something like, I want to bounce back from this. And if you're still available, I will rehire you. But I am not going to feel bad if you start pursuing jobs elsewhere. And if there are other jobs that I can give you, it may not be a full-time one. But if you're willing, we could probably do this. And then he started weighing things, what's more important, what's valuable. And one thing that he realized, that he had a very famous bakery at the ground floor. And everybody likes his pastries and cakes. So he started doing online delivery, on-call delivery. And so some of these people that are not necessarily bakers or cooks, they started helping out somehow. Some of them were delivering. And that's how he prioritized. That's how he applied the 3 Ps of change strategies. And that's how he found some solace at this particular disruptive and uncertain period of his life. And I would like to encourage you to do the same thing. I want you to take those 3 Ps, reevaluate your life, reset your life if it needs resetting, and think of how you can recalibrate based on the proactiveness or the proactivities and the prioritization that you need to make. And I just want to go back to the verse that I said a while ago in the book of Isaiah. The Lord promises to give us perfect peace for those of us who have steadfast mind. The other half is a trusting heart. So I like you to remember that. So it's a combination of a steadfast mind, a proactive, prioritizing mind, a purposeful mind, and a trusting heart. Because at the end of the day, we have to put our trust to the God who created everything. You, your business, your career, even this crisis that we're all facing. At the end of the day, that's what really matters at this point. A steadfast mind and a trusting heart. To be purposeful, to be proactive, to be prioritizing things, and to be able to trust the only one that could give you assurance and comfort during these times of uncertainty. You can trust a very certain God during uncertain times. I hope this has been helpful to you guys, and I hope you can message and comment below because I would love to interact with you. And I wish you the best, and I pray that you will not only survive this period, not only make the most out of your 2020, but thrive this 2020. We all need to succeed. We all need to overcome for the sake of the people that we lead and for the sake of the families and loved ones that we care for. Thank you again. Thank you for having me, and God bless everyone.
Okay, so my mic is on. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Boris Joaquin, President and Chief Equipping Officer of Breakthrough Leadership Management Consultancy Incorporated. Wow, that is just wow. The message is really very simple, but it really tugs at the heart of everybody who really wants to pursue change, not only because there's a pandemic that's happening right now, but because we need to pursue change so that we can be more aware of what's out there, the better opportunities that are out there for us, the opportunities that we can take and that we can thrive on, not only in these challenging times, but as we move on along in life, we can be assured that they will be there for us for as long as we are open to change. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we have our second speaker, but before that, let's pause for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the talk. Of course, you're here with me, Dennis Calamba, the Mr. Delightful of Learning. Please do like and follow my Facebook page, Dennis Calamba, the Mr. Delightful of Learning. And please do join our learning community, Learning Events and Resources PH, both on Facebook. So before we continue, we would like to invite you to watch these inspirational shows under the TNC roster. We have The Big Picture with Lloyd Luna. He shares inspiring stories of notable personalities streaming from Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. HR Hotline introduces us to the wonderful world of human resources management every Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 1 p.m. iBusiness talks about inspiring business insights live streaming from Tennessee and Texas in the USA, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and Wednesdays and Fridays at 9:30 a.m. Philippine time. The fourth project is about life, business, and success stories live streaming from Dubai, UAE at 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. Philippine time. Learn your life purpose by tuning into U-Turn, Mondays and Thursdays at 10:30 a.m. The Home Buyer is where you hear inspiring stories about building and owning a property, streams Mondays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Laugh and learn through the Puppet Stories, Tuesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Ito naman, Tagalog naman, magbenta, bumili, at tumulong dahil bukas na ang TNC Marketplace, an online night bazaar live streaming every Thursdays and Fridays at 10 p.m. And of course, your new favorite show on TNC, I'm a bit biased, but we're talking about two leaders in one platform every episode, and I am talking about this show, TNC The Talk, streaming every Monday at 12 noon. So follow our page, TNC Now, for more features and updates. So please support all our shows under the new channel. And if I'm not mistaken, we're going to be premiering a new show, but we can reserve that for later. But right now, I know that the excitement is already through the roof. So it's time to call our second speaker. Are you ready, guys? Well, just a quick hello, a shout out to all those who are watching us live and to those who will be watching us later for the replay. So, ladies and gentlemen, the second speaker, he is the CEO and Chief Consultant of Learning Just Made Better, or LJMB, a 15-year-old consulting company in the Philippines. He has 27 years of experience as trainer, speaker, facilitator, designed and developed 50 plus courses, trained 300 plus companies across 9 countries and 4 continents, namely United States, Dominican Republic, Germany, Abu Dhabi, India, Indonesia, Singapore, Australia, and of course, our beloved country, the Philippines. Recently, because of this pandemic, as early as April 1, he jumped into delivering webinars or virtual classes and has delivered so far 133 webinars or virtual classes as of today, maybe more because he just came off a webinar if I'm not mistaken. He also launched LJMB Online, an online platform for blended learning courses. He also launched a podcast called The Hello World, which you can check out on Spotify. But today, he will deliver a talk entitled The Making of the Global Pinoy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Mr. Louie John Banta.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for that introduction. And it's nice to really be reconnected with you again. Dennis gave you my background there. I'm in the field of training and public speaking. And I am Louie Banta. I am a proud Filipino. I definitely look like a Filipino with my complexion, with my height of 5'3", and my facial features. My English also sounds like that of a typical Filipino. I'm really a proud Pinoy. I've gone to 8 countries across 4 continents, waving the Filipino flag high as I trained local managers in those countries that Dennis, our host, just enumerated earlier. If you are a Filipino and you're listening to this talk, my goal is to make you feel prouder of how much more we can achieve as a society, how much more of an impact we can create on a global scale. If you are not a Filipino and you happen to listen to this talk and you come from, let's say, North America, Europe, Middle East, or Australia, my goal is to ensure better multicultural collaboration with the Filipino at the center as a better contributor or facilitator in that collaboration. In this talk, I will use the word Filipino a lot of times, and I will use it to pertain to the typical average Pinoy. May not be you, because depending on your education, your experience, personality, or the generation that you belong to, you may or may not be the typical average Filipino. So please do not take what I'll say personally. It may not reflect you. It may not describe you. I'm talking about Filipinos on the average. Again, the title of this talk is The Making of the Global Pinoy. I've been very passionate about this. And as mentioned earlier in my introduction, I've worked with over 20 plus nationalities in the course of my employment, in my consulting engagements. There are a lot of lessons that working in a global space can really teach us. For about 4 decades, Filipinos are known as the world's workforce. We have been exporting a lot of manpower, supplying OFWs since the 1980s. You would remember seafarers, nurses and healthcare workers, skilled laborers in construction, domestic helpers, caregivers or nannies, service and hospitality, and entertainment workers in restaurants and hotels. Since the late 1990s as well, the Philippines received offshore work, finance, administration, encoding, transcription work that led to outsourcing becoming a boom. And we became the location of choice as far as IT, as far as customer service, technical support, maybe second to India in terms of IT. Then in the last 10, 12 years, shared service centers came as a strategy of a lot of global organizations. And we, the Philippines, Manila in particular, is now home to more than 4 dozens of SSCs or shared service centers or in-house service centers doing work in finance, procurement, HR, creatives, VA, and a lot of other functions supporting APAC, EMEA, Europe, North America, Latin America. Indeed, the Filipino is the global workforce of the world. And even if there are BPO locations and SSCs in other countries, chances are our centers here in Manila, in the Philippines, are bigger with more FTEs compared to those in other countries. Now, based on the last 15 years of working with other nationalities, executives from global companies who offshore, outsource, and hire Filipinos, Filipinos are preferred workers and frontliners of the world because we can understand and speak English better than other non-native English-speaking countries. 2, and this one I get a lot, we are generally more cooperative and hardworking according to them. I've heard this feedback from European ship officers comparing Filipinos with other nationalities who go on board. I get that feedback as well with our industrial laborers in the Middle East. We are a jolly, friendly culture, always smiling even with a lot of problems, and we are also known for our hospitality trait. For 40 years and counting, we have been a top provider of workers, frontline employees, has brought a lot of benefits, grew the Philippine economy, provided employment and boosted allied auxiliary businesses, and solidified the Filipino reputation as the reliable worker. There's even a joke, wherever you go in the world, no matter whether it's a big country or a small island, you will find a Filipino overseas Filipino worker. But what if, instead of just being the world's favorite worker, Filipinos can also be one of the world's favorite destinations or choices for leaders or managers or influencers or implementers or results drivers? My vision, my dear friends, is our next level, the next level of Filipino society. I dream of that here when, aside from just providing Filipino workers, we will provide Filipino leaders in the global stage. Not necessarily leaving the Philippines, but being recognized as world-class leaders. And don't get me wrong, there were some in the past. There currently are Filipinos in a multinational organization who in headquarters occupies executive, high influence positions. My goal is to have more. We can have more, to be recognized not just as workers, but as effective people leaders and business managers. That whenever work is to be offshored or outsourced, the Philippines or Manila is the preferred destination, not just because of our English capability, not just because of labor cost, but because of the leadership skills of the Filipino. People leadership, communication at a global scale, influencing skills, regardless of our levels in the organization. Whether you are a frontliner or a supervisor or a manager or a director level, basta Pinoy, taas natin ang bandila. The making of the global Pinoy. My vision is whenever headquarters from Denver or Atlanta or Dusseldorf or Sydney or Melbourne or London think of filling up global leadership positions, they will consider, or they will even think highly of their Filipino managers as candidates. We need more Filipino leaders in the global stage, recognized to be able to lead in multicultural environments, which is now commonplace. Especially because of this extended work from home setup, especially that a lot of employees are now work from home and communicating with others virtually, the world continued to become a much smaller place. With this work from home, video conferencing, virtual communication setup to last until 2021, this will be it. And this now really makes it possible for any person in any nation to just communicate with anywhere else in the world. The biggest barrier to that vision, my dear friends, and I've been holding on to this thesis or hypothesis for the past 13 years. I believe that there are four biggest barriers to us shining better, leading better in the global stage, in the multicultural stage. And these barriers come in the four core or cultural traits or values that we Filipinos have. Let me underline them. Let me enumerate them. Pakikisama. Hiya, I'll spend a great deal of time on hiya. Bahala na, and amor proprio. Read any sociology book about Philippine culture and you will always read these four as the Filipinos' cultural traits or characteristics. And yes, values and cultural traits are supposed to be good. That's why the word value or benefit or worth. But just like anything, when overdone, these values can become liabilities. I know I mentioned four. I will focus more on hiya, the value of hiya, the value of being able to save face, especially when it is overdone. How can we become global? How can we communicate in a multicultural environment when hiya, which really runs very strong in our DNA, prevents us from assertively and confidently express our ideas? We can be confident and assertive among ourselves, among each other in a Filipino group. But once, and I will always joke in my seminars, once you put a white guy, once you hear a foreign sounding voice in the call, all of a sudden, something takes over, something happens, and it prevents us from really being able to openly and honestly express our ideas. Hiya, when overdone, leads us to defer to others because we are afraid to make a mistake. I'm fascinated why, in a room full of Filipinos, again, I'm referring to the typical Filipino, we ask someone to be the prayer leader. Ito na lang. Simple example, prayer leader. And the typical Filipino would say, why me? You be the one. And all of a sudden, everybody's now pointing to each other, waiting for someone to just take over. We're not lazy. That's hiya at work. We are afraid to make a mistake, to say something wrong, to stutter, to be laughed at, because sadly, our educational system, especially during my time, wired us that if you give the wrong answer, you say something wrong, you get embarrassed and you get laughed at in class. One Filipino once told me, less talk, and you know what's coming up next? Less talk, less mistake. The belief that if we talk less, it's okay. But if we talk less, others cannot hear our ideas, cannot hear our truths, cannot hear our contributions. And the typical Filipino is really not fond of asking a lot of questions. In our society, asking questions, again, a product of our experiences at school, may mean a sign of ignorance. I disagree. But we grew up, we went to work, we were supposed to ask a lot of questions to learn our jobs and to make a positive impact. But when a manager in a meeting or a trainer in a seminar asks, everything understood? The typical Filipino will just say, yes. Clear? Yes. When the manager or trainer leaves the room, we look at each other and ask, ano raw? What did he say? And the other person will say, I didn't get it. I thought you did. And a lot of people laugh in my in-person trainings, face-to-face trainings, because that's really very typical of us. For those of you who work with global companies, who get into teleconferences, remember those times when we get asked by our counterparts in other countries and we say, noted, we unmute and just say, noted. Also an example that usually gets a lot of laughter in my audience, especially if you work with global companies, because indeed, we love saying noted. When we mute the phone, or when we unmute the phone after saying noted, we talk to each other, we express our disagreement to each other, but not there in the call, the perfect venue to express our disagreement. We are not that assertive to discuss and articulate our ideas. Very passionate about this. Stop saying noted. Who takes notes? A secretary takes notes. Yes, you are not in meetings to take notes. You are there to contribute ideas, suggestions, even challenge the status quo. Now, the higher we go in organizations, the bigger the organizations that we work with, the more global our work reality becomes. The more we need to be assertive. Imagine dealing with North Americans. Imagine dealing with Germans, French, British, Indians, Australians. Especially when people have diverse needs and backgrounds, we negotiate. We will even engage in conflict. And when we do, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. So be ready to make mistakes, be ready to lose. Hiya prevents us from accepting that when we work with others, sometimes we will be right, sometimes we will make mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes if we learn from them. But we are so wired to really be very afraid of mistakes. We always say yes. I speak to a lot of foreign nationalities, and yes, they notice that a lot. We Filipinos saying yes, I call that the Filipino yes. Hiya prevents a lot of even intelligent and competent Filipinos from saying, I don't agree, or that's incorrect, or I have an alternative opinion. Instead, we say yes to somebody else, to people in power, to people in authority, to other nationalities. But when we say yes, they will hold on to our yes. An American, a European, an Australian, they will hold on to our yes. They will hold us accountable for results. Because to them, a yes means we understood, we commit to something, an agreement, and we will deliver the results. But to the typical Filipino, we say yes for different reasons. And it can mean, yes, I understand. Yes, I will do it. Yes, I agree. It can also mean, I don't agree, but I just don't want to prolong this conversation. So I'll just go along and say yes to keep the peace. Hiya, the biggest barrier that's in our DNA, when overdone, really prevents us from maximizing our potential to communicate and contribute in our global organizations. So let me give simple things that we can do to communicate globally. 3 things. Speak up. Speak up. Do not be afraid to make mistakes. Stop saying yes when we do not mean to say yes. And I don't mean going to the opposite of saying no all the time. We don't want to be obnoxious and turn off people as well. But only say yes if we really heard it, if we really understood something well enough that we can explain it, and only say yes if you agree you will deliver results, regardless of any external factors. Third, ask questions when you don't understand. Get rid of that mindset. Questions mean ignorance. Yes. Ask questions the moment you hear it. Something's not clear to you. I beg your pardon? Can you repeat that? Sorry, I didn't get it. It's okay. Admit that. It's so humbling to say that. But it's also considered in a global environment as courageous saying that you did not understand. And most people exposed to multicultural settings will admire that honesty. And instead of pretending that you understood, you give the wrong report later or give them the wrong answer and people get frustrated. Of course, if you always say that every time you did not understand, it's a different issue. It becomes a competency or a comprehension issue, and you need to work on that. I spent a lot of time on hiya. I believe that's the biggest barrier that we have. The others are pakikisama and bahala na and amor proprio. I'll touch on them very briefly. Pakikisama, the benefit is that, yes, we value and we emphasize good, smooth relationships. The disadvantage in a global scale is it becomes a barrier to effective leadership. We can't lead people well if we are always driven by pakikisama. We will always prioritize feelings. We're afraid to lose friendship of our people. There's a tendency to become popular and liked by others. We always want to be nice, and leadership is not just being nice. The job of the leader is to bring out the best of people, best in people, so that they can deliver results and also to make decisions for the greater good, even if it is not popular to your friends in your team. Filipino leaders typically give high ratings, right? Or middle ratings because they don't want to get into trouble with their friends. They give indirect feedback, or you use the sandwich technique. Good, bad, good. Stop using that because the person hears good at the start and good at the end. And that's the only thing that matters to them. So please, give people direct feedback. You owe it to others. Bahala na. Bahala na is what? Come what may, let it be. And we have versions in the Filipino setting. Bahala na si Batman, bahala na si Superman, bahala na ang Diyos. In English, let Batman, let Superman, let God take charge. I don't see a benefit to this cultural trait, to be honest. It may strike you as we depend on a higher force, say God, and when disasters or problems happen, it's God's will. We have sayings like, kung hindi ukol, hindi bubukol, it's not meant to be. But I believe God helps those who help themselves. And if it's meant to be, it's up to me. Bahala na makes us dependent on someone else, stops us from being proactive, planning for the future, and preventing lapses. And when you operate in business organizations, when there is a lot at stake, you cannot just make a decision and just bet it on bahala na. Where our North American, European counterparts, and Australian partners are focused on results and don't want to leave a lot to chance. The worst part is when all of these are combined with amor proprio, the last cultural value that I'll talk about. Amor proprio is the Filipino pride. Yes, a very deadly combination when overdone with hiya. Hiya is you don't want to speak up, you're afraid of making a mistake, yet you are full of pride, you don't want to admit it. As I wrap up this short talk with you, I could say more about this and go on and on. The title of this talk, again, is The Making of the Global Pinoy. Despite of everything that's happening in our country, despite of what other nations would say about us, I'm a proud Filipino. We provide the world's workforce. I challenge every single one of you Pinoys out there, retain the positive cultural traits that we have, and at the same time, cast away the unhelpful side of our overdone cultural values and traits. Think global, speak global, and act and react in a global way. Where we can fulfill that vision, we will not just be recognized as the world's supplier of workforce, but will also be, sooner or later, an influencer, a strong driver, strong people manager, and business leader in a global environment. It's been my passion to share lessons of working with other nationalities to you. Yes, I believe we can do it. We can move on to that next level of being the global Pinoy. Help me, please, with this advocacy. Back to you, Dennis.
Mr. Learning Just Made Better, or LJMB. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Louie, that was really one wonderful talk. It was both an affirmation of the Filipino, but at the same time, there is a challenge that he brought out for all of us to really be, okay, claim our destiny to be global movers and shakers of these companies or corporations. And as my former boss has said, grow where you are planted. So I just hope that that message resonates to all of us as Louie ended his talk. But of course, we have already done. We are already done with the two speakers, but there's more in store for all of you. So hang in there, friends. The talk will be right back after these reminders. And we are back. Dennis Calamba here, the Mr. Delightful of Learning. Please do follow or like me on Facebook, Dennis Calamba, the Mr. Delightful of Learning, and also join our learning community, Learning Events and Resources, PHA. Ladies and gentlemen, just like what I've mentioned when we first went on the previous break, there is a new show premiering on the new channel. Are you interested? Watch this. Yes, so what a nice question. What is your passion? But really, ladies and gentlemen, we are very excited to premiere, yes, another new show after shift. So please watch out for it and also support this new show entitled After Shift. Of course, also continue to support the other TNC shows under the whole roster. So exciting times, everyone. There's really something happening on live stream. And talking about live stream, there's this group that's going to be looking after the live streamers out there. Of course, there's a lot of us already from show hosts, live stream hosts, bloggers, podcasters, webinar speakers, online events hosts. You know, all of us. But wouldn't it be interesting if we had one group or one family, a community that we can call our own as live streamers? So I do hope that you will really watch out for that as we launch that community that I'm talking about. But while we're waiting for it, of course, just continue to enjoy the shows under TNC. Always look at your Facebook for notifications under the new channel. So just going back to the two speakers as I do my final recap, final analysis, I think for me, I told you before we went on the show that you needed to have a notebook and pen. And I did have my own, see? But just looking at the notes that I've taken based on these two wonderful talks, all I can say is both really did a good job. Boris and Louie did a good job in terms of lighting that fire in us. Okay, lighting that fire. What fire are we talking about? First is the fire to change, to pursue change. And Boris gave us three simple yet very effective strategies in order for us to start that journey for change or of change. So please do remember always the three P's. So what are the three P's? Purpose, proactivity, and of course, priorities. So we can start from these three strategies and then we'll be on track to our journey of change. Now, going to Louie, again, another passionate talk about the Filipino being global, the world's most favorite service provider, but the vision is clear that what he and probably all of us want for the Filipinos to experience is really to become global leaders. And I like what Louis said that hopefully there will come a time where when there are so many leadership positions out there for the taking, these foreign companies will be able to look at the Filipino and realize that Filipino leaders are as good, if not better, than their foreign counterparts. And that's not a knock on other nationalities. It's just that we should have that pride within us to really make a good account of ourselves as Filipinos, as global workers, and even right now as global speakers. I wouldn't know, maybe after a month, more global, a global audience will be watching this show and the rest of the shows on TNC. So we better dress nice and we better talk nice as well. We better practice that English in a manner of speaking, whether you speak it locally or you speak it with a slang. So that is my take for our wonderful messages coming from our two speakers. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a virtual clap or a real round of applause to our speakers for today's episode, Boris and Louie. Yeah, give it up. Clap with me. Clap with me. So hopefully you learned a lot from their speeches or talks. But of course, we do hope that, more than just enjoying the sound bites, you were also able to get valuable insights from their power-packed presentations. Of course, here at the talk, we really enjoyed the time that you have spent with us. So I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much for joining us on another episode of the talk here on the new channel. This has been your host, Dennis Calamba, the Mr. Delightful of Learning, not only local, but global and going worldwide. But I'd like to leave you with an encouragement to keep on learning and keep on growing. So, see you next Monday as we open the virtual stage yet again with two speakers, 20 minutes, thought-provoking messages. This is The Talk. To God be the glory. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks.